Did you know giant squids have a hole in their brain, and if they eat too fast, they get brain damage? Blue whales are the largest animals that have ever existed, and they can't swallow anything bigger than a grapefruit. And gorillas, the most powerful primates on the planet, can't swim at all. In this video, we are going over giant animals with embarrassing physical weaknesses. Giant squid. The giant squid, Architeuthis dux, is one of the largest invertebrates on Earth, capable of reaching over 12 meters in length, and it has a brain shaped like a donut. Not metaphorically. The brain is literally toroid, a ring with a hole through the center, because the esophagus runs directly through the middle of it on the way to the stomach. Every single piece of food the squid eats passes through its own brain. The consequence of this arrangement is exactly as bad as it sounds. If the squid tries to swallow something too large, the food presses against the brain tissue on its way down and causes neurological damage, brain damage, from eating. The squid's solution is to never swallow anything whole. It uses a sharp beak to tear prey apart and a radula, essentially a toothed tongue covered in tiny rasping plates, to shred everything into small enough pieces that nothing damages the ring of brain tissue it passes through. Doing this correctly, every meal, forever, is the tax the giant squid pays for its anatomy. What makes this even more absurd is that, despite having a brain a sandwich could injure, the giant squid has the largest eyes of any animal on Earth, up to around 25 to 30 centimeters across, evolved specifically to detect the faint bioluminescence of predators in the deep ocean. It can see across the abyss. It just has to be very careful about lunch. Blue whale. The blue whale, Balænoptera musculus, is the largest animal known to have ever existed on this planet, across the entire history of life. Adults reach up to 30 meters in length and can weigh close to 200,000 kilograms. And the throat opening is roughly the size of a grapefruit, not the whale's mouth. The whale's mouth is enormous and can take in hundreds of thousands of liters of water in a single lunge, but the actual passage from mouth to stomach measures somewhere around 10 to 25 centimeters across, which means the largest animal in the history of Earth physically cannot swallow a human being, cannot swallow a large fish, cannot swallow almost anything with real size to it. The entire body is built around one food source, krill, tiny crustaceans averaging about 2 centimeters long. The whale lunges forward with its mouth open, engulfs a massive volume of seawater, then pushes the water out through hundreds of baleen plates that filter the krill out like a sieve. To sustain a body that size on something that small, a blue whale needs to consume roughly 4 million individual krill per day, around 3,600 kilograms of food, and it does this through pure volume processing, not through any ability to actually bite or swallow anything substantial. The most massive predator that has ever lived runs entirely on something smaller than your thumb. The ocean's largest animal in a grapefruit is a hard limit. Elephant. The elephant cannot jump. No species of elephant, African or Asian, has ever been documented leaving the ground with all 4 feet simultaneously, and it isn't simply a matter of weight. The anatomy is the real problem. Elephant leg bones are structured vertically, like load-bearing columns, designed to support enormous mass rather than generate the explosive upward force that jumping requires. There's no ankle spring mechanism, no coiled launch structure. The legs are pillars, not springs. Even at top speed, which sits around 25 kilometers per hour, elephants always keep at least 1 foot in contact with the ground. Biomechanists technically classify this as a fast walk rather than a true run. The practical consequences are real and have been exploited in wildlife management for decades. Elephants cannot clear even a modest obstacle and can be reliably redirected or contained by trenches that would be trivial for almost any other large animal. A ditch roughly 2 meters wide is a genuine barrier to a 6,000 kilogram animal that can uproot trees. The irony is that elephants are excellent swimmers. They'll cross rivers several kilometers wide using their trunk as a natural snorkel, the trunk extended just above the surface while the body moves underneath. In water, they're capable and calm. On flat land, a ditch stops them cold. 4 tons of animal that rearranges landscapes for fun, and a hole in the ground is a hard wall. Gorilla. The gorilla is the most physically powerful primate alive. Adult male silverbacks weigh up to around 200 kilograms and have enough upper body strength to bend steel reinforcement bars. They cannot swim. Gorillas have never developed swimming behavior and actively avoid deep water, and the reason comes down to basic physics. Gorillas carry an unusually high ratio of muscle mass to body fat, and muscle is denser than water. Where a human with more fat distribution floats with relative ease, a gorilla sinks. Add to this that gorillas never developed the instinctive kick motion that allows swimming, and deep water becomes a genuine threat. In the wild, gorillas will wade through shallow crossings, but will travel significant distances out of their way to avoid anything requiring actual swimming. Rivers function as real geographic barriers to gorilla movement, and researchers believe this has contributed meaningfully to the separation of gorilla subspecies over time, with river systems acting as walls that isolated populations from each other across generations. The limitation became a design problem in captivity. Historical zoo enclosures used water moats to contain gorillas, operating on the straightforward logic that a moat doesn't need to be deep or wide, just deep enough that the gorilla won't attempt it. Several drowning incidents in captivity eventually pushed facilities to redesign enclosures entirely. It can bend steel. It cannot cross a pond. Hippopotamus. The hippopotamus spends up to 16 hours a day submerged in water and cannot swim. This is not a simplification. Hippos are too dense to float and have never developed swimming as a behavior. Instead, they walk along the bottom of rivers and lakes in slow motion, pushing off the riverbed in a kind of bouncing stride and surfacing to breathe roughly every 3 to 5 minutes. The surfacing reflex is automatic enough that hippos do it in their sleep, rising without fully waking, breathing, and sinking again. The entire relationship with water that defines the animal, the hours of submersion, the cooling effect, the social behavior in river pods, is built entirely on bottom walking, not swimming. None of this makes them less dangerous in water. If anything, it makes them more unpredictable, because a hippo closing on a boat is running along a riverbed at a pace that can reach 8 kilometers per hour underwater, invisible until it's already close. On land, they're faster still, hitting around 30 kilometers per hour over short distances, which is faster than most people can sprint. The skin produces a reddish-orange secretion sometimes called blood sweat. It's neither blood nor sweat, but a genuine biological sunscreen and antimicrobial fluid called hipposudoric acid, one of the only natural sunscreens produced by any animal. It lives in the water, sleeps in the water, and has never swum a single stroke. The whole thing is just a very large animal taking very long walks in a river. Rhinoceros. The rhinoceros is one of the most dangerous large animals on Earth, and has been for millions of years. Its vision is terrible. White rhinos, which can reach 2,300 kilograms, are estimated to see at roughly 20/60 or worse, making them severely nearsighted by any practical measure. They struggle to identify stationary objects clearly beyond about 30 meters and compensate almost entirely through smell and hearing, which are both exceptional. The olfactory region of the rhino brain is proportionally enormous, reportedly larger than the cerebral cortex in some assessments, reflecting just how completely the animal relies on scent over sight. The poor vision has a direct behavioral consequence that has become part of the rhino's reputation. A significant portion of rhino charges are not attacks on perceived threats. They are charges at things the rhino cannot identify: rocks, trees, vehicles, and in documented cases, trains. The animal detects something unfamiliar, cannot see it clearly, and the threat response fires before the information is available to resolve the situation. The charging behavior that makes rhinos famous is partly just the result of an animal that cannot tell what it's looking at past a certain distance. The same limitation makes them vulnerable to poachers who approach from downwind, closing the gap before the rhino's vision registers anything. One of the most feared animals in Africa has been charging boulders for millions of years and will never know. Moose. The moose is the largest member of the deer family, with adult males reaching up to 700 kilograms and carrying antlers that can span nearly 2 meters across and weigh up to 36 kilograms. Getting a drink of water is a genuine physical challenge. The combination of the moose's long legs, the weight and forward positioning of the antlers, and a center of gravity that sits high and forward makes lowering the head all the way to ground level slow, effortful, and mechanically risky, particularly on uneven terrain. Moose compensate by wading into bodies of water to drink, rather than lowering their head to a surface, and they're well-adapted swimmers who can cross lakes several kilometers wide and have been found paddling in open coastal waters. On land, though, the head is just too heavy and too far forward to bring down easily. The antlers are shed and regrown every single year, which means the moose goes through this balance recalibration annually, losing the weight, regaining full mobility briefly, then spending months readjusting as the new rack grows back in. Bull moose and rut have been documented so exhausted and physically compromised by the antlers, combined with reduced feeding, that some don't survive the winter following breeding season. The animal wearing the largest antlers of any living species on Earth has to walk into a lake for a glass of water. It's been doing this for the entire history of the genus and shows no signs of reconsidering the antlers. If you want to see more, click the video on screen now.